Hey, what's up? Silas here. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how you can learn a lot about, I think, American culture and American society and society in general based off of what they eat. I mean, we're still biological creatures, and I think that's one of the drives to continue to be alive, to continue to have sustenance and nutrients. And then from then on, you go out and you do things. And I was just thinking about, think about the general food that your average American eats and then think about other things they consume. Now, when it comes to the ideas, their way they approach politics, the way they approach the world, and you can learn a few things from there. Part of what made me think of this was I found this new channel called The Wolf Pit. It's this guy, I think the first video I saw was he goes to the dollar store, which is a store in the United States of America where everything costs $1. And he gets these different foods and he's tasting them and he's doing taste tests. And one of the things I see in there is he gets this food and you bring this food out and it's something like, for example, banquet backyard barbecue, which is what I'm watching here. What are we eating? It's something that cost 117 for this thing called supposedly barbecue ribs and things like that. It's made out of chicken and pork, and it's this kind of meat slurry he talks about, and it has TVP, which is like textured vegetable protein or something. And you look at the list of ingredients, and that's one thing I've always wondered in the United States of America. It seems to be a thing where with the processed foods, the more ingredients you have, the cheaper it is. It's kind of going against the, what's it called? It's going against what you'd think. You'd think if it's fewer ingredients, it should be cheaper. But then I was thinking there's maybe something with food where a lot of other processes, maybe you're making drugs, you're making other things. It you need to make maybe 500 gallons of a certain thing to get maybe 2 gallons of that thing, so you can make a medicine. And with that 498 gallons left, what do you do with it? Oh, you just sell it off to these companies and they put it in the food, even though it's part of like the processing of the food, keeping the food to last longer and things like that. But just the amount of actual nutrients and actual nutrition in that food is very low, yet you have so many ingredients, you have so much access to these things, and it's very readily available. And a lot of people just go in there and they don't really care about what's in there. They're like, okay, this is for convenience. This is for convenience sakes. I'm not going to put the time aside or even have the time or make the time to actually go in and learn how to make these foods, learn what's in there, choose what I'm going to intake. And you see that a lot in the political aspect, I think. You see a lot of people who are just like, we're just going to ingest material. Yes, we have all these news channels, we have all this material, we're just going to take it in. We're not really going to care about the content as long as we're getting the information, this kind of low level junk information. Maybe junk food, processed, it's processed information. Yeah, it's exactly processed information. It's gone through so many different sources. And instead of getting just the actual whole information, they go to the processed information and they absorb that, and then you see the results. You see negative results from that. And another thing was the different kind of foods he's talking about here. He's talking about spotted dick. He's talking about shepherd's pie. He's talking about all these Italian dishes. And in the United States of America, a lot of people have exposure to these kind of foods, but they have them by going to places like the dollar store. They have them even like Olive Garden. I think Olive Garden is passable, but you have like chicken parm type things here. And then that's the kind of thing where somebody might think, I've even said this before, like, oh, in the United States of America, you have access to so many different kinds of foods, so many different kinds of cuisine, so many different kinds of things like that. And to the level where in the past it was only kings, even maybe 100 years ago, it was only kings who had access to this kind of food. Now, your average American, yes, may have access to a dollar store version of chicken parmesan. They have these chicken patties, but is that really chicken parmesan? I don't think so. I think it's a kind of situation where, for me, I've traveled a decent amount, and when you leave a certain place, there's certain things you don't have in the place that you go to. And for me, I've learned how to cook. I've been cooking since I was a kid, but I'm the kind of guy who's like, look, I don't want to have a cheap alternative of something once you've had the actual thing. I would rather wait until I can actually make the thing or have access to that thing again, or find a passable substitute for that thing to deal with that craving. Yet I think a lot of people experience these things from other cultures and other societies, and it's just a cheap version of it, and then it kind of changes the idea of what that thing actually is. And you see this a lot also with people on the political left. There's recently been a couple of of issues with people in the Trump campaign, people in the Trump administration being booted out of restaurants. Someone's like, I think it was the lady in charge of the Department of Homeland Security. She was in a what's it called? She was in a Mexican restaurant, and liberals, progressives went in there and were with signs and chanted and made her leave. And then this other place, Sarah Sanders, who was a spokesperson, the White House spokesperson, she was kicked out of a restaurant because the restaurant owner said that the gay, what's it called? The gay staff were too triggered by her. But anyway, with the whole situation with the Department of Homeland Security person, someone on CNN came out and was like, look, this is tone deaf. I can't believe she goes to a Mexican restaurant. And that's how most people think about other cultures. It's just the foods of those cultures. Whereas even that food that they're having, like this is an example I've given, I think several times, is something like General Tso's chicken. Someone would be like, oh, I know Chinese food because of General Tso's chicken. General Tso's chicken is an American dish. It was invented in America. So some of these things, you have this kind of level where your actual interaction with other cultures, I think most people in the progressive left, is a very processed version. And this is not just a processed version of what they see in the United States of America, in what the media is telling them about these cultures through Hollywood and things like that. But even if most of these people travel, when you travel to a certain country and you're going on the touristy kind of venues of the touristy kind of places of it, you're only going to a processed part of it. They're processing their culture and refining it down to somewhere that's palatable and easy to sell to tourists. It's not the actual culture. So a lot of these people, there's a lot of progressives in upper middle class leaders of these activists, the activist type class, there a lot of them have done these travels to other countries, yet they've only seen the processed part of it, and they think, oh, now I'm familiar with this culture, I can speak for on behalf of them, I can defend it because I am familiar with this, whereas you backwoods people in the countryside of America, you red state flyover people, you've never met somebody from another culture, you've never had a Mexican dish, blah, blah, blah. No, you also haven't actually had the actual thing, you're having a processed version of it. So, I mean, it's just also an interesting channel. This guy's got 369,000 subscribers, and his channel is just kind of going on and talking about food. And I think it's a good channel to have because he's kind of giving these very basic reviews, and he's kind of telling people like, look, this food, for what it is, it's pretty decent, and I think it's a good introduction to certain foods. And maybe I'm just being too bougie, being like, look, that's not the actual food and things like that. For some people, that might actually be the experience. But also, there's another thing. There's information out there. There's information on what you're eating. There's information on what you're consuming, and I think people should be more careful and more attentive of that. And you have the access to do that. And this is just another thing on YouTube. Pretty good. He doesn't get political at all on it. And I know a lot of people on YouTube talk about, oh, the content on YouTube is just crap, it's just this processed stuff. Or people on the political right will talk about this sometimes, how some channels are being blocked and things like that, and yet other material. But I think most of YouTube is stuff like this. This guy just talking about food and things like that. And so check out that channel. It's called The Wolf Pit. I think I might leave a link below to it. And let me know what you think about that whole processed food thing, processed information, and how much you think that actually applies to people's lives. I mean, because in my opinion, it's a pretty good thing. If people are willing to just take this processed food in and put it in their body and ingest it and have it actually power their survival machine, then it shouldn't be surprising that people are taking such processed and artificial ideas and putting that in their brain and powering their thinking machine. So it makes complete sense. And then the last one also is a lot of these people, these activist class, a lot of people going, oh, we're educated. Just like people can say, like, America has the best nutrition in the world, saying everybody has access to food. You have access to calories. Like, yes, you're getting 500 calories for $1. That's enough to actually drive your body. But what is the quality of that nutrition? It's going to be enough so you don't die, for sure. You're going to be able to get up out of bed and move around and do things. But the quality of that nutrition, is that going to eventually start damaging your body? Now, when it comes to the education system, yes, America may have the highest number of people actually graduating from university that's ever had, or it's very high in the school. in the world, but what's the quality of that information? When somebody's like, I'm very well educated, do you have people who, the same way in America there's a lot of obese people because of the quality of the quality and quantity of the nutrition that they're taking in? Is there a lot of obese people thought wise? People with all these dash studies, these hyphenated studies courses, when you go to a university and you're taking all these other courses, these other degrees, are those people technically mentally obese, where they have so much this information in their head, but it's not quality information. It's not information that actually helps them actually go out there and be active and have the way, if you're obese, you're taking in nutrients, you're taking in calories that your body's not using well. It's actually limiting the effect of your body. And that could be a similar thing with the obesity from these ideas, these mental ideas. You're taking in all these ideas that are actually restricting the ability of your mind to actually work, yet it's still not dying. That makes any sense? So yeah, like, share, and subscribe. Links below to the merchandise store, where there's a different kind of merchandise that's been on the screen. I don't know if it's on this side or that side, but check that out. Let me know what you guys think about this. And for more bougie stuff, I have this also Instagram account called ChefNet App. I'll leave a link below to that, where I just post different foods. I'm doing a ketogenic cycle right now. And yeah, so more on food, more on other things. One last question here. For those of you who can think of some American dishes, American cuisine, think about some dishes and think, do you know how those dishes were actually developed and what was the history behind them and why they are American, if they even are American? Now, I have a lot of interest in food and culture and society, and I think humans are biological beings. We try to get resources. The way we get resources kind of defines the culture that's built and the civilization that's built around that. So there's a lot of connections you can find within that, and I have a whole series where I'm talking with my friend Stephen Thomas Kirshner, and it's an interesting series if you guys have the time to check that out. If you haven't checked them out yet, I have about at least 6 of them up, so check those out. Goodbye.